Hello, and welcome back to the Military Matrix. What you're about to hear is one of the most symbolic and devastating strikes in modern warfare, a blow not just to steel and concrete, but to pride, power, and political illusion. Russia's prized Crimean bridge, once a shining emblem of dominance and engineering might, now stands scarred and shaken, the bridge that couldn't survive. Just after dawn, explosions ripped through the calm waters of the Kerch Strait. Witnesses from both sides reported a thunderous roar, followed by towering plumes of smoke and fire, rising from the massive bridge linking mainland Russia to the annexed Crimean Peninsula. Within minutes, images began flooding social media: black smoke, twisted metal, and shattered rail lines, the once glorious connection between Russia and Crimea now engulfed in flames. Russia's pride, quite literally, was burning. This wasn't an accident. According to Ukrainian intelligence sources, it was a meticulously planned underwater operation carried out by the Security Service of Ukraine, the SBU. Nearly 100 kilograms of explosives were placed beneath the bridge's support structures, detonated remotely at the precise moment when logistics convoys were expected to cross. The result was catastrophic. One of Russia's most guarded structures, fortified and monitored around the clock, was struck at its weakest point from beneath the waves. For years, the Crimean bridge stood as Vladimir Putin's ultimate trophy, a 19-kilometer long steel artery stretching across the Kerch Strait, symbolizing Russia's unbreakable grip on Crimea. Built at an enormous cost and unveiled by Putin himself in 2018, it wasn't just infrastructure, it was ideology in concrete. Moscow framed it as proof that Crimea's annexation was irreversible, but now that narrative has cracked quite literally. When the explosion hit, traffic was instantly halted. Witnesses described chaos vehicles stranded mid-span, emergency teams scrambling to contain fires, and Russian authorities rushing to assess the damage. Initial state media coverage attempted to downplay the event, labeling it a minor incident. But as satellite images began to circulate, it became clear one of the primary bridge supports had been severely damaged. The roadway partially collapsed, and railway lines warped by heat and shock. Hours later, Moscow admitted that transport was temporarily suspended, a statement that masked the gravity of the situation. From a strategic standpoint, this is far more than a symbolic victory for Ukraine. The Crimean Bridge is Russia's most critical logistics artery for military supplies flowing into southern Ukraine, particularly the occupied territories of Crimea, Melitopol, and Kherson. Every shipment of ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements depended on this route. Damaging it means choking the flow of resources that sustain Russia's war effort. For Ukraine, this was not just revenge, it was strategy and the method of attack. That's what has military analysts around the world talking. Reports indicate that Ukrainian special forces used autonomous underwater drones or specially modified submersible vehicles to plant the explosives. The strike demonstrated remarkable technical sophistication, the ability to strike deep behind enemy lines, bypassing air defenses, missile shields, and surveillance networks. In modern warfare, this marks a turning point. The battlefield has expanded from land and air to the unseen depths of the sea. For the Kremlin, this strike is an embarrassment on every level. The bridge was protected by layers of defenses, radar systems, naval patrols, anti-drone barriers, and electronic surveillance. Yet the attack succeeded. It pierced through Russia's most fortified asset, showing that no symbol, no fortress, and no infrastructure project is untouchable. Analysts are calling it a psychological earthquake. For Moscow, a moment that exposes the illusion of invincibility. The immediate aftermath tells its own story. Russian repair teams rushed to the site. Engineers worked around the clock to assess the structural integrity, while cranes and military pontoons were deployed to stabilize damaged sections. State television broadcast images of limited repairs, trying to project control. But satellite data and independent footage tell a harsher truth. One span appears irreparably bent, and underwater supports have sustained deep cracks. Experts say full restoration could take months, if not longer. For a bridge that carries both rail and road traffic, that's a logistical nightmare. Meanwhile, the psychological effects ripple through both nations. In Ukraine, there's celebration not of destruction, but of precision, courage, and technological evolution. Across social media, the phrase "the bridge that couldn't survive" is trending, capturing the sense of poetic justice. This structure, once built to cement Crimea's annexation, now stands as proof that occupation itself is not permanent. For Russia, however, it's a wound visible, humiliating, and hard to hide. Let's talk about symbolism for a moment. The Crimean Bridge wasn't just a structure, it was Putin's personal statement. He drove the first truck across it, televised live, waving triumphantly. It was hailed as the unbreakable bond between Russia and Crimea. Today, that same bridge burns under the same sun that once gleamed off its steel. It's a metaphor the world can't ignore. When pride is built on aggression, it's only a matter of time before it collapses under its own weight. Now, from the military perspective, this attack represents a masterclass in hybrid warfare, combining intelligence, stealth, and timing. Ukraine managed to hit Russia's most valuable non-military target, crippling not just movement but morale. For Moscow, the challenge is not only repairing the bridge, but also repairing the image of control. Every convoy delayed, every tanker rerouted, and every soldier resupplied through alternate routes means lost time, lost fuel, and lost trust. The Kremlin's reaction was predictable: blame, denial, and threats. Russian officials accused Western allies of assisting Ukraine in the operation, calling it an act of terrorism. Putin vowed retaliation. But retaliation against what? The target was military in nature in occupied territory, directly supporting war operations. Even Russian commentators, usually loyal to the regime, admit that Ukraine's strike was both strategic and legitimate. This creates an uncomfortable narrative for Moscow, the realization that despite its size and arsenal, Russia can't fully defend what it claims as its own. Meanwhile, international reactions poured in. Western defense experts hailed the operation as a stunning demonstration of precision warfare. European intelligence agencies described it as a turning point, showing that Ukraine is no longer just reacting, but dictating the tempo of war. In Kiev, officials maintained a careful tone, neither confirming nor denying direct involvement, yet calling the event inevitable. The message was subtle but powerful. If you build your empire on stolen ground, don't be surprised when it starts to sink. In the following days, Russia attempted to restore partial traffic across the bridge. Civilian cars were allowed on a single lane, while rail operations resumed on limited schedules. Yet, every passing train runs under the shadow of uncertainty. Engineers fear structural stress under heavy loads. Inspections continue around the clock, and the bridge, once a showpiece of engineering pride, now stands guarded, battered, and vulnerable. Let's also consider the psychological warfare aspect. Each time the Crimean Bridge is hit, and this isn't the first, it chips away at the illusion of Russian control over Crimea. For the average Russian citizen, it's a visual reminder that the war has reached what was supposed to be untouchable. For Ukrainians, it's hope proof that even the strongest symbols of occupation can fall. In wars of attrition, morale is everything. This attack gives Ukraine an edge that missiles alone can't provide confidence. But make no mistake, this operation comes with risks. By striking such a high-profile target, Ukraine invites potential escalation. Russia may respond with missile barrages, drone attacks, or intensified assaults elsewhere. Yet, many analysts argue that Moscow is already stretched thin. With the front lines unstable and its logistics strained, Russia's capacity for large-scale retaliation is limited. That's precisely why Ukraine chose this moment to strike when the symbolic loss would hurt most and retaliation would achieve least. This event also exposes a deeper truth about modern warfare. It's no longer about numbers, but about precision. A single well-executed strike can inflict more damage than weeks of artillery fire. Technology, intelligence, and timing now outweigh brute force. The Crimean Bridge was supposed to symbolize permanence, yet a handful of experts, some explosive material, and months of planning proved otherwise. In the grand narrative of this war, The bridge's destruction will be remembered not just as an explosion, but as a statement that geography can be contested, but destiny cannot be forced. When a structure built to symbolize power collapses under its own illusion, it tells the world something profound. Power is not in construction, but in conviction. So what comes next? Russia will repair, rebuild, and reinforce. Ukraine will adapt, advance, and strike again if needed. But something fundamental has shifted. The illusion of control is gone. The world has seen the flames, the cracks, the chaos, and no amount of propaganda can rebuild what has been lost in confidence and perception. This bridge once connected two lands, now it divides two realities. The Russia that pretends to control the narrative, and the Ukraine that continues to rewrite it with every strategic move. The smoke over the Kerch Strait isn't just the aftermath of an explosion, it's the fading shadow of an empire's pride. Russia's pride is in flames. The bridge that couldn't survive has become a monument not to connection, but to collapse. And as the dust settles, one thing is clear: this war is no longer just about land. It's about symbols, and Ukraine just shattered one of the biggest. Thank you for watching the Military Matrix. Stay tuned for more real-time analysis, verified updates, and expert insights from the front lines of global conflict. Subscribe, stay informed, and as always, keep your eyes on the truth behind the smoke.